So, Fletch, Kara and I were watching The Bachelor this week, and every time we watch it, the first thing we both agree on is that the guy looks like very much like you, and he talks like you, and he kind of like acts like you. Um, it's uncanny.
Are
Is
you
he you?
forecasting my future right now?
And I mean, I think it's important that the listener knows that this isn't the first time we've put Fletch and The Bachelor in the same sentence. One time we were in front of the Capitol back, but this is pre-January 6th when you could go to the Capitol, and we
Yeah.
recorded Fletch's Bachelor video. Soon after, he found another way to love, but now that he's back and a Bachelor once again, the conversation just and the question has to be asked, Fletch. Are you open to being the Bachelor?
Not down. And I'm throwing the double not in there because of the stipulations and the preconceptions that come around reality TV. But I feel like I'm still a young steed and I'm allowed to explore into some territories such as The Bachelor.
Fletch, I think it'd be more smart if you got on like The Bachelorette and had to compete with other men and then do Bachelor in Paradise, which is kind of just a conglomerate of candidates from previous shows,
See,
and
here's the
then do The
thing.
Bachelor.
I just need someone to tell me, hey, we need you out in LA for this. Just give me the dates. I'll pack my suitcase and I'll be there.
Dude,
The details of it all, that's the tough part for me. I'm
I'd imagine
down.
being The Bachelor is not fun.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. I'm not saying, but that's the thing. I wouldn't treat it as fun. It would be strictly business. These are meetings,
Well, isn't the point to find love, not business?
Yes, of course. And I think it would be really tough to be able to, create a separation between desire and love because there's a lot of ways in which attractive humans are almost nibbling at your feet. But yeah, I feel like you have to figure out a way to. So yeah, for the viewer right now, this is what year is it? Circa what?
20,
2019.
2020? 2019.
2019.
2019. Circa 2019, we had moved to no, we hadn't moved to DC yet. This was when we were in DC showing Blue Marble Sky.
This was the
Correct?
tour right before you guys went to go shoot Beyond the Beat. Yeah.
Are you
Wow,
guys
yeah.
ready?
So we're up in DC about to show our film, and we
Here we go.
were doing a little photo shoot at the Capitol.
Go ahead.
The votes are in, and it was unanimous. The people of the United States of America, you spoke to my heart and you spoke to my feelings. And I, Fletcher Barnes, will be looking for love and will be throwing myself into the contest of The Bachelorette. If that makes any sense, I hope it does.
So that's
we
the
had to
intro.
we had to take an Elvis stance and not film your waist and the movements you were making under the camera.
Right, of course.
Yeah, if you're
Too
listening,
much gyration is going to throw them off.
Yeah.
Fletch is
Right.
gyro master. Oh,
Well, in this conversation, once again, I'm not ruling it out. I feel like I'm a little bit more mature now on how I view love. And, and maybe my purpose wouldn't necessarily be to find love and walk away. Maybe it would be to.
I guess my question to you, Fletch, is: are you ready to be a provider?
Dude, I don't know if you've seen my new tattoo on my bicep, but it says provider. So yes.
Fletch, you'd be the first Bachelor to episode 1 meet someone who comes out of the limo and goes, "This one, done."
Right away.
Season's over. All right, let's get started. Or else we're never gonna dive into anything.
Bookmark this. Bookmark it, please.
Let's roll.
Here we go.
It's gonna be alright.
If you can give your community permission, especially with men, it can go a long way.
And only from that place of peace can a relationship truly be reconciled.
I saw the first. But if I stop and create a little space, then there's that room for a response. Then I can actually check in with myself.
Welcome back, everybody, to Dudes with Feelings. I'm here with two other dudes. We have the Bachelor himself, Fletcher Barnes. We have the former Bachelor himself, Henry Davis. Now he's in the black and white, no longer in the gray. He's conquered life. And I'm McKenzie Beeby. Just never been the Bachelor. Always been together with someone.
Never been the Bachelor or the Gray. You've always
Nope,
been...
never the gray area either.
Yeah.
No. Meet him on Friday, date him by Monday. So,
marry him by Wednesday. Yeah.
So,
the man moves quick.
Speaking of, actually, this is totally unrelated, but this week I want to first bring in a topic that we've been talking about a lot behind the scenes at Blue Marble. We're working on a project where we're going to really try to help provide some value to people who are recent grads. And we released a poll because we had an inner debate on whether people largely felt stuck after college or felt lost after college. And I don't know if you guys reviewed the results yet, but it surprised me. And the first statistic on this is like we asked the question, right? Which emotion did you feel more aligned with after college? There were three options. There was lost, stuck, and other, which was like happy, excited, nervous, whatever. And over 50% of people said lost. And if you kind of compile stuck and lost together, it's 68% of people had a negative feeling or experience after college, which I thought was pretty shocking. And the more I dove into who was responding where, I noticed that the excited, happy, nervous, kind of antsy to start life after college was primarily older people from different generation than the younger people who just went through college and graduated. Everyone who said lost and stuck are still under the age of like 30. And I thought that was really telling. So I want to get your thoughts on this because I don't think we've talked about this results of this poll that we put out on Instagram this week.
So you're telling me a lot of like the older generation, like mom and dads, were saying excited and happy for the most part?
Granted, Kels, was the way we described it was other, right? So they would have had to kind of generate that emotion for the third category.
Yeah. I mean, the feedback we got with people who said other were like, I was nervous and excited and all these other things. So like, I kind of assumed that other was more positive and then lost and stuck were more negative. But yeah, I want to get your feedback on that.
I think it's super interesting for a couple reasons. Number one, I think in some regard, it makes sense to me why you might feel or why one might feel lost. And that's because you've had such a controlled environment for so long and had someone or had a schedule and such a regiment. And now you're being thrown out into the world where maybe that's not the case. And you might not know what you want to be doing. And so that feeling of like lostness might be creeping in more and more, especially as you compare yourself and what you're doing to what your friends might be doing. For me, I remember the fact that because we were working on Blue Marble Sky, I don't think I necessarily spent a lot of time feeling lost or stuck. Maybe a little bit confused, and you could put confused maybe in the lost category, but that was an emotion I feel like I was dancing with more so because I didn't really know what was next for me. And I didn't really know how to properly use my degree because I got a degree in film theory and digital media production, right? What am I supposed to do with that degree? I realized that I needed to get my hands dirty on actual projects to make any sort of movement in my career instead of just, sending a resume out to people and trying to go from there. But for me, I feel like when I think back as to post graduation, it was a little bit of confusion for me, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, when I looked at people who put stuck, because I was curious on that, of like why someone would select stuck. My theory was that more people would say stuck than lost. But in looking at those people and like looking into their profiles, a lot of them were creatives versus like the people who went more traditional routes were lost. And again, I'm not saying that this is any sort of definitive answer that speaks to the general public. It's our Instagram following. It's largely, you know, people who associate with Blue Marble in the past and have gone to our events and things like that. But that really stuck out to me that there were a lot of people who went the traditional route outside of college after graduating, and felt lost right after it. And so, HD, why do you think that is? Why do you think people are so lost after college?
Yeah, it's a good question. I remember in our internal debate, this was the one that I had theorized would be the more prevalent one, just because I think there's that sense of, it's I'm like on a sailboat and I've just launched my sailboat into the sea, and now I don't see any islands out there, and I'm kind of gazing and I'm looking around and I'm just like, I don't really know where I am. And it's really cool. I'm on a sailboat in the ocean. So I feel this sense of like lost and excitement that I remember feeling. Um, like I'm not really sure where I'm orienting or like where I'm going, but it is really cool that I have the freedom to even feel lost in a way that I never have. Because now I have to create my own goals. I have to find my motivation. School is such a pressure cooker, and it creates all of that for me and for us. So beyond school, it has to come from ourselves, and we have to generate that for ourselves, and we have to create the systems and set ourselves up to be successful and to figure out what we want in this world. And it's just a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And any answers we find, we really have to figure out for ourselves, or we're going to live someone else's life or someone else's dream for ourselves. And I don't think anyone wants that. So I think
Yeah.
there's just a sense of overwhelm, and I do think because you also got someone that reached out. I know it's on the Instagram with more of like a message, and that really struck me was this sense of like this lost and excited, and I think those two can kind of live in parallel. I mean, that's what I remember feeling. If anything, was kind of the combination of the two.
Yeah, and I I think the lost category really stands out in the sense that what that tells me is I think we haven't educated people on how to make decisions, tough decisions. I think what happens is, and I work with a lot of guys who go into college or are currently in college or have just graduated college. I work with them a lot, and there's a lot of people who have this sense of, I feel like I made the wrong decision of what I majored in, or I feel like I haven't totally figured out what I'm going to do after college, even though they have a very specific major, but that major didn't pan out to be exactly what they wanted it to be or what they expected it to be. And then when they get out of college and they actually graduate, they sit there and go, what do I do now? Because I spent 4 years studying something that I'm not really into, and I'm getting offers for jobs that don't really excite me, whether it's the monetary value or it's the quality of work that you're starting to do after college. So I've noticed a massive increase in men who feel tricked to go to college in the first place because they feel like they didn't actually gain anything that was worth the dollar amount of college in finding the right career. And I think that's a problem. And I think that boils down to this idea of I can't make competent decisions in where I want to go in life and what I want to do in life. We don't get taught the roadmap for finding our mission. And I think that's a massive challenge that young people have to face today, because a career making enough to buy a house and to provide for a family right out of college is wishful thinking at this point in our culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think about my little brother who graduated, this past year and is now currently living at home, and he's just not quite. I mean, he's dealing with some health things, but he's amazingly educated and super smart, and took all the literature classes he could take. He was a creative writing major, got a liberal arts education, and is an amazing writer and has been educated on how to think critically and from a lot of different angles. But I think there's this sense where he's gotten out. He's like, well, what does that mean in a job sense? Like, where do I go? I don't even know where to apply. Like, how do I feel unequipped to work in most of these roles. I'm going to have to learn so much because my education wasn't really preparing me for a specific job or career. It was really just teaching me how to think, which I think in the long run is super valuable. And if that's you, like, I don't want you to get discouraged, because I think, if you're out in the middle of the ocean, like, there's going to be a really beautiful island that pops up, and you're going to start moving towards it and find some clarity there. But for that immediate, maybe 6 months, year, 2 years after college, it can be a little bit disillusioned and even scary at times, because I just don't know where to go.
Yeah, I in talking with a lot of the guys who work for me during the summers, who are graduating college, I hear this a lot, which is, I want to get an internship, or I want to do all these extracurricular programs in college so that I get a good job right out of college. But in looking at statistics, it's over half of recent graduates leave their starting job after the first year. And I think that's really telling of, you can put in all this work, but if you don't know the right people, or you don't have the right central mission towards your life and where to go with your life, you're going to find yourself not getting the job you want, leaving that job, and then going, what now? And I think that's a really scary place. And one of the statistics I wanted to show with you guys is, in following up on this conversation, is just the massive increase of depressive episodes of people who are 18 to 25 compared to 2010. I mean, we're seeing this direction where we're seeing an increase in young males being more lonely than ever. Like I said in that previous statistic, it was like 3% of people in the 90s of men felt like they had close friends, and now it's like 15% of men feel like they don't have any close friends. And we're also seeing this increase, which is from 18 to 25. From 2010, 8% said they had at least one major depressive episode in that time frame, and in 2020 it's grown to 17%. So we're going in the wrong direction in multiple facets here, especially for young men who are going through college or have recently graduated college. And it's concerning to see where this will plateau at.
Yeah, it's hard to look at these numbers and not have, or scratch your head and think, what are we doing as a society to better equip these young adults to feel, I think, more of self-worth? Because it's interesting how they describe them as a depressive episode, and not just depression itself. because I do feel like the episodes they're very real. I mean, I went through one in college, and it is very real. And um, the way that I feel like I got out of it was through um, a being extremely honest with where I was at and vocalizing that to people who I was living with, and then B, having a form of expression, which for me was improv at the time, which like ended up giving me some sort of outlet to just release like stuck feelings and emotions. But I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know how or what it is like. And I want to bring this up with you guys while we're on this crazy statistic as like, what is it that is causing young adults to be going into these depressive episodes, and why is that rising even though we have so much access to information and know that certain things are good and certain things are bad? Like what is it right now?
I think that point, that access to information, is a point that I think contributes to this number in a multitude of ways. One, I think that young people have more language for mental health than they ever have, and so the ability to categorize or identify something as depression or a depressive episode is greater than it's ever been. So we're more likely to identify what might have previously also been depression. We didn't categorize that as depression. And there was a lot of culture that said, no, that's not depression. You're just upset, right? Or you're just like, and so I think we're much more sensitized to the word. We're more likely to use the word than we ever have been, which I think is progress. We're destigmatizing mental health. That's the goal, right?
HD, that's true, but then you also have this increase in suicide rate in the past several decades as well. So has the language been effective? I mean, I'm sure it's effective in recognizing it, but could it be effective in inflating it too?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's not all good necessarily that we have more language, but I think it's coinciding with a real mental health epidemic and challenge, in which is largely been catalyzed by technology, which most of the research would point to. We know that it's harder than ever to be young. It's harder than ever to be on social media and to compare yourself and to feel like you need to build a personal brand at the age of 12. That you're constantly leveling yourself with others and seeking validation and creating unhealthy patterns and esteem at such a young age. I mean, the access to porn for young people, I mean, the age that most people find porn now is 11 years old. I mean, that contributes to it, right? There's so much that technology is enabling. I mean, it's such a long conversation, obviously, when we start to dig into it. And I know people have done some really awesome research, but we're really just starting to do the research because it's changing so quickly. So I don't know.
I think we have done a really good job of recognizing negative thought patterns, negative experiences, recognizing depression, destigmatizing it. I think all of that is wonderful. I don't want to undercut that. And I think we're still neglecting instilling proper language in ourselves and proper narratives in ourselves to feel valuable. And I think because we have an industry that is so caught up in focusing on the disability or focusing on the disorder or focusing on the negative things that happen to us, we're still neglecting the conversation, the inner language and the outer exterior language that can help us get out of it. And I think we're so quick to think that the solution is a medication, or the solution is more of this. and more of an exterior thing that you can put onto yourself or take, rather than saying maybe it's an inner narrative problem that you just don't have the right words to properly create a story in your head in which you have value,
Right.
because there's very little tools out there for that. And that's where I think a lot of the problem is we believe the solution, our immediate responses are a solution is medication. And
Mackenzie,
I
I'm gonna pause you right there, and I want you to bring in my video because I feel like this is a perfect
yeah, you want to
segue.
transition?
Yeah. Just because I feel like you started to talk in the same vein that I feel like this video is talking to. So if you could pull it up, that would be
Yeah, I got you.
incredible.
If you really want to be transformed, you have to live an intentional life. This is so simple, I don't want you to miss it. Most people don't lead their life, they accept their life. And when you accept your life, you are living on things that are not worthy of your time and effort and energy. To go uphill, you have to be intentional. Nobody ever went uphill by accident. You've never read a book on accidental achievements. You have to be intentional with what you do and who you are.
First, I want to get y'all's hot takes on it, and then I'll speak to what about this video hit me and why I'm bringing it into a conversation with you guys. But first off, hot takes. What do you think?
Mackenzie, I want you to kind of finish, and maybe you can kind of weave some of this, that what Fletch is kind of getting at here, because I think it certainly is connected.
This is the exact, to me, this is one of the many solutions for young people to find purpose in life, is to recognize that any language where you're saying these experiences and these things are happening to me that are holding me back, with that language and with that narrative in your head, you will be held back 100%, full stop. And yes, there may be challenges, there may be hurdles, there may be things that are preventing you from getting where you want to go. But I also find that a lot of young people have no idea where they really want to go. I think they say, I want to have financial freedom, or they say, I want to be able to provide for a family, but they don't understand the inner work that you have to do to yourself, regardless of your income, regardless of your decisions of career, to get to that point to where you're able to have that be the product of your work. And I think a lot of people see these results as what they want and not understand that what they really want is a mission and a purpose. And these are just the results of that. And so I think he's speaking to that, which is you can't find your purpose just by accepting the scenario of things happening to you. You have to go out and freaking find that purpose for yourself,
Right.
and discover that language that can help change that narrative that things are just happening to you and that you just need to accept them. And I see that a lot in this generation today of people who just accept the things that are going on in their life and don't decide to make the decision that it's time to change that viewpoint.
And this is where I find my empathy, because there used to be a couple voices in our head, like and there was a more clarity around like making that choice, going out and figuring out purpose and those things, and leading a life as he talks about. Now young people are growing up with hundreds of thousands of voices, all just pouring into them through social media, through content, through everything around us, the amount of stimulation in this world today. And so the mind is absolute chaos. And if we try to meet the world with a chaotic mind, we'll just create a more chaotic world. And that's why I'm seeing anxiety. That's why I think anxiety is just off the wall right now, is because there's no calm, there's no mental calmness to even be able to approach or contemplate some of those questions that you're talking about. And our internal narrative gets shaped by what we consume, which dictates our
Yeah.
external condition. And I just worry about the stuff that we're consuming, and how toxic that can be in really defining an internal narrative that's built on lies, unworthiness, and things that ultimately lead us to doom.
I want to challenge that a little bit, Henry, if you're open to it, which is yes, there is so much information being hurled at us. But that's the very mindset of I'm accepting my situation. I'm accepting the things around me. That there's so much information and I'm going to kind of just use that as my crutch. And I think it's that logic. And I'm not saying that you're saying that about yourself, but you're empathizing with people who accept that as a reality. And um, I don't accept that as a reality. And I know many people who don't and find clarity through all of the noise. But it takes intention. And I think that's what this guy is speaking to, is that
Yeah.
it takes intention.
For sure. And not living as a victim. Like, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think I'm the empathy and we need the action, but more maybe what I'm saying is why I empathize with the struggle people may be having. I don't think they're consciously, saying, well, my internal narrative is all messed up because I've been inputting so much crap. I think I just see people struggling to take that step or to weave through the mental chaos because we've been damaged by our culture, and we can't be victims. Like, we have to move forward and we have to lead a life, as that video gets at, Fletch, which I want to hear why you brought that in.
Well, because the reason this video struck me and really resonated with me was because he talked about acceptance in a different way that I'm used to. I have always had a relationship with acceptance of it always being such a positive thing, and that being something that's very beneficial to self growth and self improvement is to accept circumstances, accept where you're at in order to move forward or change or something. But this to me was accepting the cards that life was throwing at you and thinking that is the life that you have to live, and accepting that as your reality. And I think that to me is living on autopilot. That to me is living a life where you're not fully alive and living almost as a cog in the machine. And I think the whole idea of what he's talking about, which is intentional living, is that act of waking up and realizing that you are an active creator and can design the life that you want to live. But that takes deep work, and that takes deep intention, intentional work, and getting to know yourself on that deep level.
Yeah, 100%. And my last thought on this is we've never gotten this right. I think that's important to understand, that we as humans have never gotten this right because we are humans. And what I mean by that is our mind is designed to believe very specific things. And it's designed that way to keep us alive and keep us surviving, right? The first way that our mind does that is to hyper focus and be hyper aware of the things that cause us pain or that could challenge our conventional thought, right? Our mind can work against us if we're trying to find a life of thriving. And it also does that by incentivizing quick pleasure and comfort and safety. And then the third way it really does that is by focusing on other people's problems and hyper analyzing other people's issues. It's why reality TV and following celebrity drama and gossip is so popular, is because we love to compare their lives to our lives. And it's our mind validating that its run to safety and its hyper analyzing of our problems is valid. But the work that has to be done is acknowledging that your inner voice, which is controlled by your mind, is there to give you an option. It's not there to give you the solution. And if you want to thrive in life, you have to move out of that survival mechanism or that belief that your mind is telling you about all these limitations that you have on your life, and be able to start recognizing it as a separate organ to you making the decision whether that's right or not. And so I just think it's important for us to do that inner deep work that you mentioned, Fletch, and recognizing that our mind doesn't always know what's best for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
And
so
even
true.
if it does, it's often the things we know we should be doing that we have the most resistance around. And so a lot of times that's that's where shame comes up, right? I know what I need to be doing. I have the perfect strategy in my head, but I've been thinking and thinking. I'm overthinking this, and now it feels like a massive thing for me to just work out today. Because I feel like if I work out today, well, then I don't need to work out tomorrow, and then I have to follow this whole plan, and we just live it up in our head, and then life starts to happen to us and not for us, and um, yeah, all the things compound.
That's what I love about some of these movements of people like doing cold plunges and things like that. It's because they're actively fighting with their mind each and every day and going against it because they know the benefits, right? Like it's that like, oh, it's snowing outside. Should I go on my morning run or not? You just do it because you need to establish in your day that you're not going to listen to your mind, and what your mind is saying to you is not
Mhm.
biblical. It's just an option. And I think that's a really important thing. And I love seeing stuff like that happen because we challenge our mind in that sense. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do as a human.
It's
Yeah.
like the ability to, just like you go to the gym to work out, is spending time working out your mind and training your mind to, because you can. I think that to me is one of the ways I will meditate, is just observing thought and seeing which thoughts that I need / want to be putting any of my energy into. Otherwise,
Yeah.
just matumbo the thoughts away.
Our whole
Yeah.
body is really good at overcompensating, right? When you break your arm, what's the first thing that happens after a couple minutes?
You grow another arm.
It
I'm a
gets
robot.
swollen, it expands, it explodes, right? It just starts getting larger and larger and larger. It's trying to overcompensate for the injury. But if you're emotionally hurt, you have to ask yourself at some point, how is my mind overcompensating to try to reach to
Mm.
safety, to try to
That's
feel
good.
better?
Yeah. I like that.
I was talking with this guy the other day, and we were talking just about creativity, and um, it was really funny because he's like, yeah, it's been harder for me to like connect with guys here in the area, especially because I'm in the creative field. It's like, he's like, I don't know where they hang out. He's like, a lot of the guys that I will like see are just like really like ripped buff guys, and it's hard for me to go like and strike up a conversation and like find any sort of commonality or common interest with them. And then we were like talking, and we came to the conclusion that as a human being, we all have insecurities. And I think some of us are just way better at hiding them or acting like the insecurities don't exist. Um, and I think some of the times that we try to outrun our insecurities too, or cover them up. And I feel like so much of the work is just being able to acknowledge them and be honest with close friends and people in your life who are close to you about them. Um,
Yeah.
but I just thought it was a really cool conversation, and it was cool that he was able to talk to me about it, and I could voice some of my things that I was dealing with as well.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well,
H, you got something to share?
I got something to share, and I'm looking for that smooth transition, and I'm like, it's just not there because we're about to change gears a bit. But I think within the context of maybe what you're showing in that conversation, Fletch, and what we as men maybe don't trend immediately towards. But I stumbled upon a clip in the news of all places where I felt like a man did. I don't know, exercise to me compassion and awareness in a way that's pretty rare for a man in his seat. It's actually the FBI director. Um, and we'll watch it and see if you can notice it, and we'll talk about it.
FBI Director Christopher Wray sounding the alarm over China. Let's listen.
That threaten American safety and prosperity. Before I go on, I do want to make very clear that my comments today are not about the Chinese people, and certainly not about Chinese Americans who contribute much to our country and are frankly often the victims of Chinese Communist Party aggression themselves. Rather, when I talk about the threat posed by China, I mean the government of China, in particular led by the CCP. The CCP's dangerous actions, China's multi-pronged assault on our national and economic security, make it the defining threat of our generation. Now, when I described the CCP as a threat to American safety a moment ago.
All right.
Did we get hacked?
So yeah, I mean, it's the larger narrative from like a more political lens is there's just a lot of evidence to show that China is basically unleashing an incredibly massive hacking campaign against the U.S. And
is it through TikTok?
We're not starting that rumor on here.
It's not.
I don't know the
Am I
answer
not
to
allowed
that.
to ask questions?
I don't know the answer to that, and maybe someone does.
I just wanted to get.
We'll
HD
post it as
saying
you know what, Fletch. We'll find out. We'll post this as a TikTok, and we'll see if it.
We'll see.
Okay, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, HD. Continue.
So the larger point is, right, like obviously let's just zoom out. I know we're all American, but the US and China are in a massive, like, I mean, it's essentially a Cold War. You could make an argument for that, right? We're not actually at war, but there's so much controversy and it's at the highest tension it's probably ever been. And in that, right, you have the one side and the other, right? And the masculine trait of winning and dominating is so often the way that it's approached. And I see, especially throughout history, we've generalized a government as a people. And in that, what has happened is what's happened in the US, right? Which, we've seen that from previous presidents. If we're not careful with how we talk about people, our words can have real consequences. And so I'm just going to show these stats because I think it's super real and doesn't really get talked about. Nearly 75% of Chinese Americans report discrimination in the past year, right? Like we are at a really tough point in our history with China. And because of that, if our leaders aren't careful with how we talk about this and lead with compassion, then we're going to really put our fellow Chinese Americans in danger, like we did in World War II with our Japanese Americans. For me, it was just I'm watching this, and I've wanted politicians to draw the distinction between the Chinese government and the Chinese people. And I saw this, and he just stopped his entire speech. I know you couldn't hear it before. He stopped his entire speech to say, "I just want to be clear who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about these people who are amazing human beings." But the second we start to dehumanize the entire country of China, we actually make the war more likely. We lose the humanity of it. We lose our compassion. And I think in a smaller sense, it's a real issue, especially with men, just to lead with that compassion and to say, wait, I'm not going to demonize. I'm not going to victimize. I'm gonna really be clear about this. I'm curious how that landed with you guys.
I mean, I'll ask you guys a question because I think this gets to the larger point of what we were just talking about in the last segment, which is, what do we get if we overgeneralize the Chinese government and attach it to the people? What do we get in return personally?
Maybe the sense of like victimhood, or like it's happening to me, or is that kind of what you're getting at, like that?
Well, right. I think it's so easy to highlight the problem here and not understand why we as a people choose to run to this black and white view of China as a whole for something bad that a few Chinese government organizations have done, right? We don't compartmentalize. And so what's the benefit of that as a human?
I think it plays to our internal narratives, allows us to maintain heroship in our own story, for one.
Yeah.
We also, I think, can formulate, maybe this is similar to what you were saying, HD, is like a bad guy in the story. And I think when there's a bad guy, then it's easier to somehow create this sort of narrative like that America and like patriotism needs to take over. It also, to me, just starts this rumor, drama, like ooey, like icky way in which we speak about people. And it just gets spread. It's almost like it's a contagious disease in and of itself, the way in which information, the way we speak to one another. And I don't think if someone says something to us that and we disagree with it, I don't think a lot of the times we stop them and say, wait a second, I don't agree with that. I think a lot of times we just take it as is and then we'll go spread that to someone else. And it's, telephone.
Well, in the context of our last segment, right, your mind is, if you're feeling fear or you're feeling scared over a situation like this, your mind is going to try to find the quickest way to comfort, the quickest way to feel safe, the quickest way to get security. How do you do that in a situation like this? How would your mind naturally do that? It would do that by overgeneralizing and just quickly running to, these are the bad guys and we're the good guys and this is how we can beat them. And so this is where you get the reactionary response is, all of our bad human habits, because we've done this countless times before, after 9/11 with Muslims, during World War II with Japanese, and probably German folk too. But I mean, you primarily hear about the Japanese internment camps during World War II. We do this because we're fearful, and our mind is running to find the quickest solution so that we don't remain in our fear. Because what does it truly say if we feel like we don't have control and we fear the results of not having control, right? What does that say to me as a human? It says that I'm in danger. And so I think this is an important thing that we need to do and challenge ourselves with when highlighting problems in general as a people, is acknowledge, what's the benefit of being lazy here? What's the benefit of just overgeneralizing that I'm having right now? And where is that stemming from? And for a lot of people, it stems from that fear that we don't actually have control, safety, and security.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is why in politics it's so widely used, that approach. We're just going to overly generalize. We're not going to speak to the complexity. I mean, it's largely why people connect so much to Donald Trump's message. It's so simple, and he speaks so plainly and simply. Not even like there's literally no political point there. It's just to be aware that the tendency is to simplify and overgeneralize. The practice is in actually doing what I think he demonstrates in this video, which is, wait a second, let's take a minute and be clear who we're talking about. Let's speak to the complexity of this. Let's not lose the humanity of this. And that's what inspired me in this. And it feels especially rare in a political arena, that we're actually, taking the time to be specific like this, when, like you said, McKenzie, the safer, more comforting view is the generalization.
Yeah. Because you think about it, right? Like, let's say as a whole, let's say everyone in our country runs to that fear and is looking for that fast solution of comfort. What is that fast solution of comfort as a government, right? It's to go to war with China, or it's to attack China.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's how wars break out. It breaks out because of everyone collectively trying to run to safety and security as quick as possible. So again, how do we thrive as a people? We have to challenge that understanding. We have to challenge that notion within us and say, is this truly what's going to allow humans to thrive for the next century? Or are we playing into our fears a little bit too much, right? Like, and I don't have the answer for that for this situation because I don't know enough about it. But, that's where these fast global conflicts take place, is just people just running to that comfort and fear as quick as possible, or comfort in their fear. And so,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
and
think the hardest thing too is the fact that when there are people up in these very high positions, right, who have a lot of power and have a lot of eyeballs and ears on them, and they are the ones who are acting in that fear, and then fear gets spread um, through these different media outlets and whatnot.
It's the
And-
danger of being a leader.
and the stakes are are huge. Like that's the reality here, especially when you talk about China and the U.S. The stakes are really big, but in the day to day, the stakes feel smaller, and so we don't put the weight on us. We don't take the time to actually keep the humanity at the center and at the core. And I think this was making me reflect too on moments in which I take the easy road, as opposed to the road less traveled, which is the one where we um, actually see the whole scenario and we lead with compassion.
Yeah, and just rather than getting hard on yourself and asking that question, just asking, what is my mind benefiting from this? Rather than saying like, gosh, I shouldn't be thinking this. I shouldn't be believing this about these people. Like, I know they're good people, or like, I know they're fine, but I still just can't stand them. It's like, what is your mind benefiting from that belief?
Yeah.
And start going down that road rather than
Right.
just
For sure.
beating yourself up for having the wrong belief, quote unquote.
Yeah, and this could certainly translate into any level of discrimination, ethnic, religious, racial, everything. And I'm sure we'll continue to talk about that on this pod.
Gentlemen,
So Fletch, during The Bachelor, when those candidates come out, don't jump to those
No, are
initial
you kidding
thoughts,
me?
because your mind is just looking for survival and procreation. You got to take a
Yeah.
moment, take a step back, and say, what do I really want?
Right. And that's when she's going to say, he's so complicated and mysterious.
I think it'd be pretty hilarious if I went in with a script and it was kind of rolled up in my back pocket. And when they asked me questions, I would just pull out the script. I think it'd be pretty hilarious. Or we had a live pod going like this and then earpiece.
Yeah.
So I'd be consulting the whole time.
I think
Henry
you
and
need
I
the,
would sit at the side and almost be like sports announcers, like
That'd be great.
well, Fletch,
That'd be absolutely phenomenal.
I've been working through No More Mr. Nice Guy, McKenzie's favorite book, and I could just see you with the cliff notes in your pocket and just no more, don't be too, no more Mr.
Don't be
Nice Guy,
too nice,
Fletch.
man.
Oh, nice guy syndrome.
It's real. So real.
Compassionate.
all right, Fletch, what's the word? What are we signing off at?
Oh, I got it. I asked the lady at Trader Joe's today. She gave me the word of the day. Facetious.
Why do you think she chose that?
Because her co-register lady completely bamboozled me. Another awesome word, bamboozle. And she was being very facetious with me. So I think that's why she chose it.
Country of origin? Nope.
Fletch or Henry, try to pronounce that word.
Facetious.
Tough.
Facetious.
See, really tough.
Facetious.
Is
Yeah,
that
it
right,
doesn't
Fletch?
really-
It's facetious.
Facetious.
Yeah, it sounds wrong, but I think that's right.
Facetious. Oh, that was bad.
Facetious.
Facetious. There we go.
Facetious.
And on that note, later, boys. Hey guys, thanks for getting to the end with us. We really appreciate y'all being here. Make sure wherever you're listening to this to go rate it and share it with a friend. It really helps get the word out there about this podcast. And there's one more thing that I really want to share with you guys. Beyond the Beat, which is a film we've been working on for the last several years, is officially live on Amazon. This is a big deal for us, and we really would love to hear what you guys think about it. So go and watch Beyond the Beat. It's this story about these three amazing friends who started a creative arts festival in the wake of a 2-decade civil war in northern Uganda. The film explores the potential and the power of art and creativity to inspire communities and really to bring healing in our lives and in communities all around the world. We think there's a ton of value in it, and we had a blast making it. So please go check it out and let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week. Peace, y'all.